The courtroom was silent, a thick tension hanging in the air that you could almost cut with a knife. KO was a young man named Leo, accused of a high-stakes art heist from the city's most prestigious museum. The evidence against him seemed insurmountable. Security footage, albeit grainy, showed a figure matching his build. A disgruntled former colleague testified against him, and worst of all, a single unique paintbrush from the stolen artist's collection was found in his apartment. His lawyer, a seasoned but weary public defender named Ms. Alvarez, looked defeated. The prosecutor, a sharp and ambitious man named Mr. Davies, was circling like a shark, ready for the final blow. "Mr. Davies, you may call your final witness," the judge announced, his voice echoing in the grand chamber.
"Oh, yes."
Davies smirked. "The prosecution calls Dr. Evelyn Reed to the stand." A ripple went through the courtroom. Dr. Reed was the museum's chief curator, a world-renowned art historian, and the one who had first reported the theft. She was the star witness. As she walked to the stand, her expression was one of solemn duty. Leo sank lower in his chair, his face pale. This was it. The nail in his coffin. Davies began his questioning, his voice dripping with confidence. "Dr. Reed, could you please describe the stolen artwork for the court?" She adjusted the microphone. It was a collection of miniature portraits by a little-known 18th-century artist. Their monetary value is high, but their historical value is priceless. They are one of a kind. Davies paced before the jury, and the paintbrush found in the defendant's apartment. "Can you confirm its origin?" Dr. Reed nodded. "Yes, it's a custom-made sable brush, part of the artist's personal set that was displayed alongside the portraits. There are no others like it in the world." The prosecutor smiled, turning to the jury with a dramatic flair. "A one-of-a-kind brush from a priceless collection found in the defendant's home. It seems quite clear what happened here." He then turned back to Dr. Reed. "One final question, Doctor. In your expert opinion, is there any possibility, any at all, that someone other than the person who possessed this brush could have committed the theft?" The room held its breath. It was a killer question, designed to leave no room for doubt. Dr. Reed paused, looking not at Davies but directly at the jury. "To answer that," she said, her voice steady, "you need to understand the artist." A strange energy shifted in the room. This wasn't the answer anyone expected. Davies looked momentarily confused. "The artist is long dead, Doctor. How is that relevant?" Dr. Reed leaned forward. "The artist, a man named Jean-Paul Dubois, was not just a painter. He was an inventor, a master of mechanics and illusions. His portraits weren't just paintings. They were puzzles. Each frame contained an intricate clockwork mechanism. Secret." A murmur spread through the gallery. Ms. Alvarez, Leo's lawyer, who had been scribbling notes furiously, suddenly stopped and looked up, a spark of hope in her eyes. Dr. Reed continued, "The paintings were designed to be stolen. It was Dubois's ultimate joke on the wealthy patrons he despised. He built a hidden compartment into the main display case. At a specific time, triggered by a hidden switch, the real paintings would retract into the wall, replaced by flawless replicas. The thief would unknowingly steal fakes." The courtroom was now buzzing. The judge banged his gavel. "Order, Dr. Reed! Are you suggesting the stolen paintings were fakes?" "I'm not suggesting it, Your Honor. I'm stating it as a fact." Davies, recovering his composure, scoffed. "This is a fascinating story, Doctor, but what does it prove?" The defendant still broke in, still stole what he thought were priceless works of art. The intent was there. Dr. Reed shook her head slowly. "That's where you're wrong. No one broke in. The security system logs from that night showed no forced entry. The doors were opened with a master keycard, a keycard only a handful of senior museum staff have access to." The prosecutor's smug expression vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. He shot a nervous glance at his team. "And this hidden switch you mentioned? Where is it?" Dr. Reed's gaze was piercing. "It's disguised as a small, ornamental screw on the display case plaque. A screw that would only be noticed by someone who polishes that plaque every single day. Someone who knew the museum's every secret. Someone who also had access to a master keycard." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "And someone who, perhaps, felt they weren't being paid what they were worth, decided to create their own bonus by discovering a theft and selling the real paintings on the black market later." The air crackled. Every eye in the room followed Dr. Reed's gaze as it settled on one person. Not the defendant, Leo, not the prosecutor, but on her former colleague, the museum's head of security, who had been sitting quietly in the gallery. The man who had been the first on the scene was the man who had pointed the finger at Leo. His face went white as a sheet. Ms. Alvarez shot to her feet. "Your Honor, the defense would like to call a new witness," but it was too late for that. The head of security suddenly bolted from his seat and made a desperate dash for the exit. Court officers were on him in a second, tackling him to the ground just as he reached the heavy oak doors. Chaos erupted. Shouts, gasps, the judge's gavel banging furiously. In the middle of it all, Leo sat stunned, tears streaming down his face as the impossible truth dawned on him. He was free. So how did it all unravel? Why did Dr. Reed wait until the last possible moment to reveal the truth? Later, she explained that the real thief was clever. He had covered his tracks well, and she had no concrete proof, only a deep-seated suspicion. She knew he had framed Leo, a quiet, unassuming junior conservator, as the perfect scapegoat. The paintbrush was the key. The thief had planted it in Leo's apartment, but he made a mistake. He didn't know that Dr. Reed had, years ago, secretly marked each item in the Dubois collection with an invisible UV ink signature. When the police brought her the brush found in Leo's home, she checked it under a blacklight in private. There was no signature. It was a fake, a brilliant counterfeit planted to frame the young man. The real brush was still with the real paintings, hidden safely away. Dr. Reed knew the prosecutor wouldn't believe her wild theory without a dramatic confession, so she set a trap, using the witness stand as her stage. She laid out the story of the artist's puzzle, detail by detail, knowing the real thief was in the room. She watched his reactions, saw the growing panic in his eyes, and knew she had him. Her testimony wasn't for the jury, it was for him. Psychological checkmate that forced him to expose himself. In the end, Leo was exonerated, his name cleared. The former head of security confessed to everything, leading authorities to the real, hidden paintings. Dr. Evelyn Reed became a local hero, the brilliant art historian who solved a crime the police couldn't. It just goes to show you that sometimes the most compelling stories aren't in the paintings themselves, but in the secrets they keep. And that the truth, no matter how cleverly hidden, always finds a way to come to light. Thanks for watching, and if you love stories where justice prevails in the most unexpected ways, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. See you next time.